Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is too much. And we get to discuss when is enough enough when we live in a more is better type society. We get to look at the value of moderation. But before we get started, let's just take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen just flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing every cell, every organ, bringing vital life energy into your whole body and being. And as you exhale any stress, any tension, any fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant bright light, sparkling and flickering and shining throughout all your electrons, every molecule, and lighting your cells up from the inside out, connecting you with the world beyond. And now exhale any remaining tension, any remaining stress, negativity, fatigue, and let's gently press our palms together. Very softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the tingling and the tickling and that wonderful sensation, and allow yourselves to become present right here, right now. So welcome, welcome. Today we're talking about too much. Good morning, Suzanne. Welcome. And it's great to have you here. Maggie is busy eating an apple. So she was chewing on me earlier pretty viciously. So now she's eating an apple. I'll bring her up to say hello. She doesn't want to right now. So we're talking about too much. Hi, Irma. Great to have you here. And welcome to everybody else who's joining us. I'm sure Maggie will make her appearance at some point, but she's in weird spirits this morning. So anyway, too much. So this conversation actually came about when I was talking with a friend, a fellow visionary for the future of our planet. And a friend of mine has been a champion of the concept of positive impact. And it's brilliant, because in our environmental movement, for the most part, we've been looking as a culture at reducing harm, right? Trying to minimize harm, reduce harm, or come to zero harm, rather than generating this concept of positive impact. And positive impact means that instead of everything we're doing having a destructive impact on the world, which pretty much in our culture it does, even with our best intentions, the idea is instead to have a positive impact. So to create offsets for the damage that we do, to be implementing systems that support regeneration and positive impact. And as we were talking, I was thinking about the Industrial Revolution and how the people, good morning, Tammy, welcome. It's great to have you here. We're talking about too much. And hi, Robert. Welcome back, everybody. It's great to have you guys here so regularly. I so appreciate it. It's wonderful, wonderful. So we were talking about positive impact, and I was thinking, positive impact, if we continue with positive impact, where does that lead us? Initially, for sure, we need to be taking extra measures to improve our environment, to correct. Good morning, Andrea. Welcome. To correct the damage that we've done, right? So in order to correct the damage that we've done and that we've wrought on the world, to regenerate and restore things, certainly positive impact is an important and powerful thing. And what happens when we get to a place where we have regenerated, where we have recultivated, and I don't know if I'll have the gift of living to see that, you know, so many of us may or may not ever see that in this lifetime. However, however, um, when we get to that point, what is positive impact? I guess really we need to decide that ahead of time. And at any case, I was thinking, when is more too much? You know, and I was thinking of it in the context of this really positive thing, which led me, you know, positive thing in terms of restoration of the planet and our environment. And that led me to think, as I said, of the Industrial Revolution and how the people that were promoting that to a large degree, I believed that they were creating positive impact, creating transportation systems. Maggie, come on, baby, come on. Creating transportation systems and um, conveniences, and the people that created uh, takeout food or prepackaged food, you know, they were creating something positive, probably believed that they were creating a positive impact, meeting a need, meeting a social need, meeting a need of convenience. She's adolescent, and she just, I think that this is hormonal behavior on her part today, especially, you know, she's just pretty rammy today. It's wild. Anyway, um, we're talking about positive impact. And the thing is, uh, even the best things, even the things that are established with the highest intentions, even the growth that we pursue for ourselves, even, you know, pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone, even um, anything that we do, even the good things, when there's a point, there's a fulcrum or an apex, maybe, there's a point at which it crosses over a threshold into too much. And so, for instance, maybe you're overweight and you want to lose weight, and you lose weight and you're losing weight and you're doing great and you're feeling healthy. And at some point, if you keep losing weight, after a certain point, it's too much and it's not healthy anymore. And it then can be endangering your well-being, for instance. The same thing with exercise. Exercise is great. Exercise is great, and then you can get to a point where you're exercising all the time, and it goes over the threshold, and it becomes potentially damaging and obsessive, you know. So Rosalind says, too much, too soon, making too many changes at one time. You can't tell which change made the best impact. Absolutely. Plus, the thing is that change is stressful. Even the best of change, even good change, is stressful. And what can happen is when there are too many changes too soon, to your point, Rosalind, which is a great one, is not only do we not know what had the best impact, but we can completely overwhelm ourselves. So, for instance, I was talking the other day about healing crisis because of the supplement that I started taking, and I took less than was recommended, but it turned out to be too much of a good thing, right? So too much of a delicious meal, you can end up getting yourself completely bloated and um, over full or even sick. Um, we see this with with so with pretty much anything. I mean, we can kind of look at pretty much an example of almost anything. I'm saying almost just to hedge the bet, but we can use this. Hi, Tammy, welcome. We can talk about too much in the context of pretty much anything. You can have too much stimulation, you can have too much excitement, you can have um, you probably can have, I don't know, maybe can you have too much sleep? I'm not sure. um, can you have, what else can we have too much of, or what? Suzanne says, I also get burned out if I do too many changes at once. Right. It's too much social interaction for me. I'll get really burned out if I don't get time to recharge. Too much time online. Too much. The idea is that we fundamentally, as a society, maybe not all of us all the time, but as a society, we are oriented to the notion that more is better. And the thing is that the more is better approach leads to too much. Because if we're constantly expanding, let's just think about this. You did you ever, too much sugar? No joke. Absolutely. Did you ever blow up a balloon? And if you stop for a minute, when it's early in the blowing up phase, you can blow it a little bit and stretch it, and then you can blow it some more, and then blow it some more. And actually, if you just keep blowing it and blowing it, you're going to get really lightheaded, right? If you don't pause in between. And that's an example of too much. And obviously the other example is you keep blowing up the balloon, eventually the balloon's going to pop, right? Because it was too much. More is better up to the point that it's got that wonderful texture and fullness that you want, and then more is too much. And so I guess the conversation comes back to thinking about, when is enough enough? When is enough enough? Or when is enough? And I think that that's been something in my life that I really had a hard time moderating, because I wouldn't know it was enough until it was too much. And then I'd pay a price, like I was super, super um, aggressive in pursuing personal growth and did a lot of things all at once, and just ended up kind of in a crisis as a result of all that change all that fast. Irma says, finding the fine line and balance before it's too much is tricky. I agree with you 100%. For me, being able to be aware and then choose for that balance. Yes, well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Irma. The idea is being aware in the moment and calibrating to the moment, being present to the experience. So, I've just sort of inadvertently, unconsciously stepped into, what I mean by unconsciously is not deliberately, stepped into bringing more consciousness to my body as I experience eating. Like, um, tasting the food, chewing the food, feeling my body in response to the food as I'm eating, rather than eating as a doing that I have to get done kind of thing, to be present to it. And so what you're saying, Irma, is really being present to calibrate to the moment. And that, I think, is where we get the option of choice, where we keep being present, being present, being present, choosing, choosing, choosing. Suzanne says, I step back and listen to my intuition. Exactly, exactly. So by being present, we are connected more innately to our intuition, our other than consciousness awareness, perhaps, or our broader awareness. And we can tune into the wisdom of our body, the wisdom of presence. And I just see that it's often so easy to get caught in the momentum of a goal or an intention or whatever, where we're just doing the thing instead of being in the moment doing the thing. Like, this is what I talk about doing from inspiration, doing from a place of being and a place of inspiration, rather than this doingness place. So Irma says, like a pendulum, I can be in too little and then in too much to be more aware of the middle, my balance. Yeah, I think it's an ongoing correction, actually. I think it's always going to be a pendulum. And we know this is good, this is good, this is, oh, this doesn't feel as good. Then we get to pull back a bit. And then how much do we have to pull back? Well, maybe we can get to just the edge. And we hear the phrase living on the edge. Well, maybe that's what that's about, is living on that edge of sufficiency, like enough and too much, living on that edge that is a dynamic edge of abundance and sufficiency. So sufficiency, when I say it, I'm concerned that people might construe it um, as not enough, but as enough to get by, kind of, instead of enough to thrive. But I believe the way that I mean sufficiency is a robust sense of wholeness and completeness and sufficiency. I look like I'm wearing a headdress here. Uh, Come on, Maggie. Come on, baby. So Tammy says, I wouldn't stop. I would just keep going and going. And even now, I find it hard to stop doing. Well, this is, Tammy, thank you for that, because this is really the heart of our culture, is that we are human doings, and rather than human beings. And we are human doings in that we we value ourselves and one another based on the externals of doing. Like, what did you accomplish today? In other words, you are worth what you've accomplished. And what you do for a living, or what you do in the world, rather than you're valuable just by virtue of your being. And good morning, Dennis. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you here. And Robert says, trying to multitask too much or too many times in a short amount of time can be overwhelming. Exactly. And right now with COVID, how many people do you know that talk about being in overwhelm? Right? Because it's too much. It's too much to take in. It's too many emotions. It's just too much to try to balance or comprehend. Or the same thing with news and all the information that's available for us online. It can get overwhelming. Why? Because we get past that threshold, because it's just too much. So Robert continues, like, I sometimes try to multi-listen to more than 2 streams at the same time while trying to also do something else. Now, Robert, you got me beat. I have on 1 or 2 occasions tried to listen to 2 things at once, but that's a rarity. And I think Be gentle to you. I mean, wow, too much, right? And Suzanne says, I read a good book. The author called it, it's like adjusting a soundboard. You dial back and fine tune. I love it. Thank you for that, Suzanne. It is. We're always fine tuning. So it's kind of like with an airplane or a ship. It's approximating the course, so it's going on the course and straying off and then course correcting and straying off and course correcting. And that's what we're doing all the time. And that's where we get to be calibrating this whole experience of sufficiency and robust sufficiency and abundance and overwhelm or too much. And what happens is typically we push ourselves beyond that edge. So we were talking about, enough, is it enough? There can be more, there can be more, there can be more, and then we go overboard, right? It's kind of the tipping point. When is there the tipping point, the feather on the scale that tips that scale? And we don't that edge, we can extend that edge, so we don't have to be pushing right up against where it's too much, and we don't have to be there all the time, because being there all the time, that is the stress point, that, or you might call it, some people would call it the sweet spot, and maybe we can just sort of expand that range a bit so that there's room for taking a breath where we're not maxed, where we're not amped all the time, right? Because that is too much. So interesting. I was reading about I think it's called interval training for exercise, where you have a real high intensity for 20 seconds and then a rest, like a lower activity period that's a rest for a couple seconds, maybe 5 seconds, and then a real high intensity for 20 seconds and then a rest. And it just goes like that. And it's supposed, I'm probably not representing it in its fullness because I'm just learning about it, but it's supposed to help your body burn fat better and just enhance your metabolism. But the thing is, it's short sprints, right? Short sprints. So if we're going to be doing this heavy duty exertion, perhaps it's best for us to be doing it in short sprints and give ourselves recovery time, and short sprints and give ourselves recovery time, and just go back and forth like that to be honoring this balance. And what that does, I think, also is it creates this resilience, because we stress the system and then we recover. We stress the system and then we recover. The stress of the system is not so much to break or overwhelm the system. So Robert says, rarely happens with more than 2 streams, but it happens. Oh my gosh, Robert, I can't even imagine. I get distracted, less so than I used to, but I get distracted by sounds when I'm trying to put attention on things, because I am very auditory in the way that I process. And there's such a cacophony for me to process that. On occasion I've tried it, but yeah, that's really a great way to push me into overwhelm. So Robert says, usually I can do with 2 streams at a time. Amazing. And yeah, Maggie's a character this morning, I have to say. I agree with you. So Rosalind says, some processes take a long time. Changes to those processes can't be seen immediately. In that context, if someone wants to make a change, it might seem like the stuff isn't happening fast enough. What can one do to help move through that adjustment process? Wow, that's such a great question, Rosalind, because in the process of growth and transformation, we often get impatient, you know, I want to be there already. I want to be there already. And I think that the best way, or the way that I've coped with those kinds of issues, is by really looking at the notion that there's a gap, or trusting that there's a gap between here and there that has richness for me, that has lessons that are essential for me in order to be able to get to that next place. So as an example, um, when you go to the gym, you know, you've made your New Year's resolution, you're going to go to the gym, a lot of fitness stuff today. You're going to go to the gym and you're going to get a trainer and you're going to work out. And the trainer just doesn't, you know, there are all different kinds of trainers. Some trainers will recognize that you're just starting out and they will work you to the edge, but they're aware of not going over that edge. But there are other trainers that I've experienced even that that just are doing the workout thing. And so you work out and you work out and you end up crippled for like 4 days, 5 days or more. Good morning, Abdullah Fattah. Welcome. So good to have you here. So if you're crippled for 5 days, are you in a worse or a better space than if you had been able to work out every day with just moderate soreness? And maybe at the end of the week, you have gotten evolved to the place where you were able to do the workout that was given to you on the first day without being crippled. So I think about that. I think about I think about people who win the lottery, who, you know, there are a lot of statistics about people who've won the lottery who end up broke and, you know, bankrupt, etc. And why is that? Because this sudden influx of money, they didn't have a growth time to be able to evolve into knowing how to manage that money, what to do with that money, to have perspective on how to utilize that. It's the same thing um, with resources. You know, if someone has been starving and you feed them a 5-course meal, it could kill them because it's too much too fast. So Tammy says, change is hard when people depend on you being the go-to person. And of course, we like that we're the chosen one. So we have to change our whole way of thinking and doing, etc. Yeah, there is that. And it's an evolution, because if it change, if it changed radically overnight, muscles need some toning and need some chance to stress and recover. Our consciousness does too, to have a chance to integrate, to change. Years ago, I took training in neurolinguistic programming, NLP, and it's the foundation of a lot of what I do with my clients, and of the work that I've developed called Core Connection. And it's very powerful, because really what NLP is how does to access the mechanics of how somebody else is operating in their reality, and how they construct their reality, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the questions that we always asked, and it's such an important thing in the context of big change work, is a question of ecology. And what that means is, let's say you have somebody who's in a toxic relationship. Maybe they're in an abusive marital relationship. And you do change work with them. Maybe they're in an abusive marital relationship, and you do change work with them, and they, as a result, become confrontational rather than fearful in response, or avoidance behavior type in response to their abuser. Well, it may not be the most ecological behavior to be incurring in that environment if they don't have the option to leave that environment, right? Or to be encouraging somebody to leave an environment where they might have children that they have to leave behind. I mean, there's so many things to be balancing that you want to be looking at the ecology. So, for instance, if as a counselor, if somebody comes, or a coach, if somebody comes to you and says, well, I hate my job, it's not necessarily the best or ecological advice to say, well, quit your job, unless you have some kind of strategy going forward, or a safety net, or some kind of picture of the greater ecology that is supportive, right? So what I'm saying is that the one thing we can count on pretty much is change. And to your point, Tammy, that change is hard. Change happens all the time. It's just a matter of to what degree. And the thing is that when we change too much too fast, we create disequilibrium, or we not only do we create disequilibrium, but we can create crises. And I think that we want to be creating ecological change for ourselves and for our environments and for our relationships and for our families, right? So that's like in a marriage. If one person, if both partners are working and one person decides to quit their job when both people are depending on the revenue without having a conversation about it, and what happens to the whole environment, it can potentially collapse, right? Because this one person made a unilateral decision that impacts the whole ecology in a radical way. I mean, it's maybe change that could be recovered from, but is it the most ecological way to go about it? And obviously, it could threaten the relationship because it wasn't an inclusive decision, for example. So we ended up going from when is more too much, essentially, and the notion of too much, to examples of really the devastation that too much can cause, right? um, and how can we identify our most empowering edge? And I think what we do get to do is move to the edge and back, or move maybe just beyond the edge and back, but staying over the edge or pushing and pushing until we go over the edge is takes its toll. It takes its toll on us individually, and it takes its toll on those around us. So I invite you to presence yourself to where do you overextend yourself? Because like my mom, she's amazing. She's 90 years old. She's still doing her own grocery shopping. You know, she's still doing for herself in so many ways. It's really remarkable. And she has limited energy. And what happens is she says, okay, well, I feel good today. I'm going to go do errands. She does her errands. She pushes to do her errands. Maybe she's feeling good, so she doesn't even realize that she's pushing. And then the next day or two, she's done. Like she's just wiped because she went over that threshold. And to learn where how to calibrate when enough is enough is a skill and a talent, and it's also honoring ourselves, and it's self-loving to be recognizing when you're up at that edge. Some people would say recognizing my limits, but I'm not going to call it limit. I'm going to call it your edge. And it's not something that you can necessarily predetermine. I think it's something that you can recognize in the moment. And this is something I actually muscle test for sometimes, because I have a friend of mine graciously lent me an infrared sauna. It's one of these pop-up sauna things, and so I take a sauna every morning, pretty much, in the colder weather, and what a great way to start the day. Sweating out any toxins, opening up all the pores. It's awesome. Anyway, there it I do it typically for a half hour, and sometimes it's just feeling like, oh, and I just muscle test, is more too much? Is this enough? Would more be too much? Because there have been a couple times when I've overdone it and I just was wasted as a result. So, so finding that edge, um, and being respectful of it, being respectful of your body and being and your needs. That's really what we get to look at and recognize that more is not necessarily better, even of really good things. So, with that, I'm going to wrap it for today. I'm going to let you see Maggie so she can say goodbye. And I'm Mira Rubin, and this is the Core Connection. And I come here go live each day, each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on Enlightened World Network Facebook page. It is such a pleasure and privilege to be with you guys. I so deeply appreciate you. I'm going to read the last comment that just came through. Rosalind says, trusting in the process change you have chosen helps too. Staying on the path to dive into the abyss, but knowing you can make adjustments along the way. Exactly. We're always recalibrating. And so thank you guys. And I invite you to check out all the other awesome programming on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And until next time, play on the edge. Play on the edge, find your edge, but most of all, be respectful of it and your own knowing about it.